Tanzania in East Africa. Let's talk about it. Hello, everybody. Joe Warper coming at you. And I am on the last day of my 2-week safari inside Tanzania on the eastern side of Africa. And let me tell you, the last 2 weeks have been amazing. If you get a chance to go on safari, Tanzania is a place you want to do it at. And let me just give you a quick glimpse into what I've been seeing over the last 2 weeks. So 2 weeks ago, we flew into Arusha. We landed, and the very next day we started our safari, and we started at Tarangire National Park, and it was an amazing park. Now, this is September, and so it's the dry season. So you're going to see landscape that looks a little different. It's going to be brown. It's going to be dusty. The drives are going to be a little bit more difficult, but it's well worth it, because at the park, you are going to see every animal you could ever imagine to see inside of Africa. We started out, we saw zebras, we saw wildebeest, we saw giraffe right away, impala, gazelle, you name it, it was out there. But it didn't take us very long to start seeing some of the bigger animals. And right away, African elephants, they were all over the place. In fact, as you can see in this video clip, we had this amazing experience right by the river. 15, 20 elephants all came around, began scratching themselves on trees, and it was a breathtaking experience. What a way to start our first day. The very next day, we saw big cats. We saw lions galore. We started off with 2 lions up in a tree. Next thing I know, we're surrounded by 6 young lions. We got young cubs, we got yearlings. They're out there playing together. It was an amazing experience. And then that night, we went out and we saw our first kill. We saw a female lion who had just taken down a gazelle. She was enjoying her dinner. And then the very next morning, what did we see? We saw those same 6 cubs eating another kill. So it's been experience after experience. In the afternoon of the second day, we were chased by 7 elephants, 5 adults, 2 kids. They ran after our car. We had to go about 40 kilometers an hour just to get away from them. Their trunks were up in the air. They were blaring the entire time. This has been a fascinating experience. So just a little background. So we have African lions here. You can see here's some male lions. Here's some female lions. Now, of course, the male lion, you can tell because he has the mane. But I was surprised to see that the female lion is about the same size as the male lion. There's not much of a size difference. And what I understand is most of the kills are done by the female, and then they allow the male to come in. And after they're done eating, they tend to, as you can see in this picture, go up in trees and relax. And so most of the lions that we've seen either were eating or were done eating, and they were relaxing in the shade up in trees. It's been an amazing experience to see these big cats be able to climb these large trees. And most of the big cats in Tanzania, in Tarangire, can climb trees. In fact, here's an elusive leopard that we caught, had just killed. We got one of the mother, we got one of her child. They had just killed an antelope. They were taking a rest in another tree. So that's 2 cats we saw climbing trees. But we did not get to see the cheetah while we were in Tarangire. We did not get to see the black rhino while we were there. We got 4 of the big 5. And if you don't know what the big 5 are, you have the Cape buffalo, which is different than the water buffalo that you would see in India. See, the water buffalo, while it may look similar, it can be domesticated. The Cape buffalo, some people call it the mean Cape buffalo, because you cannot domesticate this animal. So they are simply out on the plains. They're running around. They're having a good time. So you got the Cape buffalo. You have the African elephant. Here's a great shot I took. I love this shot of the African elephant. Just to see them walking across the plains and knowing that they can run about 30, 35 kilometers an hour, and you see their size, it blows you away. So Cape buffalo, African elephant, you have the leopard, African lion, and the elusive black rhino. We saw every animal we wanted to see in Tarangire, and if you have a chance, I highly recommend going to Tarangire National Park if you are in Tanzania. After leaving Tarangire, we headed up to the Ngorongoro crater, which is actually a volcano, so it should be called a caldera. And this volcano erupted many years ago, and it's what created the Serengeti, which is what you can see behind me right now, because I am currently in Serengeti National Park. And to be inside a caldera and see this amazing landscape that you can see in this photo, and to have every type of animal. I mean, you can see the steep sides on this crater, and elephants climb this mountain to come down into the crater. We saw elephants, we saw hippopotamus, we saw flamingos, and here we did see the elusive black rhino. Now, the photo that I have here is not great of the black rhino, but we did capture the black rhino from afar, and unfortunately, it was the only time we saw the black rhino because in September, they are not as active as they are, say, in January or February. So if you want to see black rhino, your best time to come to Africa is in February, because my understanding is you'll see a lot more black rhino at that time. So the crater was an incredible experience. You can see how the clouds collect around the rim of the crater, and just to be inside of what used to be a volcano and see the thriving wildlife there was an experience that should not be missed. After we left Ngorongoro crater, we came to Serengeti National Park. We've been here for 4 days. This is our 4th day. And this landscape was actually created, as I said, from the volcanic eruption at Ngorongoro crater. And Serengeti is a Maasai word which means endless plains. And as you can see behind me, it's exactly what we're experiencing here. So while in Tarangire it was very dry and brown, in Serengeti it has just been lush and green and beautiful. One of the things you get to experience while on safari is you get to stay at these amazing camps. And these camps are camping, but I'd call it more like glamping. As you can see here, you get a full-size bed, you get a toilet, you get a sink, you get a shower. I mean, if you have to rough it out in the wild, I highly recommend staying in one of these camps. However, the first night I did stay in the Serengeti camp, I was woken up by lions who were pacing outside of my tent, and I realized that a little bit of vinyl was not going to stop the lions. And it was a pretty rough night for me, but there has never been an attack inside of a tent. And while that made me feel better the next day, it didn't help me the first night. I didn't get much sleep. And we're seeing many of the same animals here. We're seeing lions, but here we got to see cheetah. And cheetah are a very interesting cat because they're, number one of the few cats that cannot climb trees, and they are not good fighters. So as you can see in this picture, it has just got a kill. It's not going to eat much of the kill because cheetahs don't tend to eat a lot. And you can see it's very skittish because the cheetah is not a great fighter. And so just about any animal, hyena, lion, maybe even leopard, could take this kill from the cheetah. So it is going to try to eat as quickly as it can and rest. And in just a few hours, we came back, and there are tons of vultures all over this kill. So it's incredible to see how nature works here. So the hyena took down the wildebeest. It did not eat all of it, but yet it was not wasted because we can see the vultures came in and finished off that kill. Now, the big, most important thing that people come to Serengeti National Park for is the Great Migration. Now, we're here in September, and the Great Migration is something that happens year-round. You have about 2 million migratory animals that work their way in a big circle around Upper Serengeti into Kenya and back down around. Out of those 2 million animals, 1.5 million of them are wildebeest. And I can say that wildebeest, to me, are basically meals on wheels because the wildebeest is eaten by the lion, it's eaten by the cheetah, it's eaten by the leopard, and it's even eaten by the crocodile. Something interesting about the crocodiles here in Tanzania, you can see that they get their kill during the crossing. The crossings only happen about 4 months out of the year. The other 8 months, the crocodiles may not eat at all. They may go hungry for 8 months at a time because there's not enough animals out there and they aren't fast enough to catch animals on land. They can only catch them in the river. So they're forced to go out and scrounge, and they're forced to look for dead carcasses, whatever they can do to survive until the time of the river crossings. They'll have these incredible crossings on the river, and not really sure why they cross, because they'll go across in the morning and then they'll come back across in the afternoon. And sometimes these animals are so fickle. Sometimes they'll cross and then they'll go right back, or they'll get halfway across and they'll change their mind. And the entire time this crossing is happening, there are large 15 to 20 foot long crocodiles out to get the wildebeest. So this wildebeest is being eaten by just about every animal out there, but it's actually in a nice balance right now. The amount of wildebeest that are being eaten to the amount of wildebeest being born has actually balanced itself out, and they're running about 1.5 million wildebeest a year. So to see the crossing, we were lucky we got to see 2 crossings. To watch these animals, thousands of animals, decide now is the time. It's pretty interesting how the crossing happens. You get to the river and you'll see a few hundred to a few thousand wildebeest standing on the edge of the river, but they may decide now is not the time, or they may get close to the river and then back off. They may decide to change direction, and all 1,000 of them will go to the left, and then they'll change their mind. They'll go back to the right. A few will go down to the river. A few will come back up. And out of nowhere, one of them will jump in the river, and that causes a chain reaction. And next thing you know, there's 1,000 wildebeest swimming across the river as quickly as they can. They're baying. You can hear their cries. They're trying to not let the current take them. They're trying not to drown. They're trying not to get eaten by crocodiles. And what's really interesting is you have to stay really far away, because any movement can spook the wildebeest and it'll ruin the crossing. So all of these safari vehicles are parked up along the ridgeline, waiting for that one wildebeest to jump in and cause this chain reaction. And the next thing you know, you have 30, 40, 50 vehicles rushing down to the river, so we can watch this incredible happening as thousands of wildebeest try to get across the river, try not to get eaten by crocodiles. It was quite an amazing experience. We also got some cultural experiences, and we got to see some of the tribes that still live and practice here in Tanzania. Now, the most famous tribe you've probably heard of is the Maasai, and the Maasai cover everywhere from Kenya down to southern Tanzania. They are one of the largest tribes, but there are well over 100 tribes living and practicing inside of Tanzania today, and we were lucky enough to visit 2 different tribes. Now, I apologize in advance here because I know I'm going to butcher this name, but the first tribe we visited was the Dinda Notoga, and this tribe is made up of 2 different sets of basically jobs. The first set is their blacksmiths, and they'll take any old metal that they can take, they'll melt it down, and they'll create weapons. They'll create arrowheads that they'll trade with other tribes, or they'll also create arrowheads out of 10-penny nails. And as you can see in this video clip here, this gentleman is taking a 10-penny nail, and with a simple hammer and chisel, he's turning this 10-penny nail into this beautiful arrowhead, which he will trade with the Maasai and with the Hazabe. Now, the other section, the other half of the tribe, they are cattle farmers. They live in mud huts, as you can see here, and they raise cattle, and they live in these 2-room mud huts. Very simple huts, but these people seem to be extremely happy. Here's a grandmother who is wearing a bunch of bracelets. Each bracelet was given to her along the way of her courting ritual, from her boyfriend that became her fiance, from her mother and father-in-law, and these bracelets pile up over time. And eventually she has to decide who she's going to leave these bracelets to. It was very nice. We got to visit these people. They gave us a wonderful song and dance and allowed us to experience their culture. Now, after we visited with the Dinda Notoga, we visited with the Hazabe, and the Hazabe were made famous in the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I highly recommend. As you can hear their incredible clicking sounds that they make with their mouth. Now, the Hazabe are still a nomadic tribe, which means they live off the plains. They don't live in huts. They don't really have much of tents. They do have these sort of structures which will keep maybe the rains off of them. I'm not really sure. Maybe it just keeps them a little bit warmer at night. But they are nomadic hunters. They hunt everything. They hunt baboon. They hunt gazelle, impala. Maybe they'll get lucky and take down a wildebeest. And they were actually offered, the elders were offered for the government of Tanzania to build houses for them. And the elders decided no, they wanted to maintain this way of life, this nomadic way of life. So spending an afternoon with these people, watching their skills with bow and arrow, seeing some of the beautiful crafts that they make, and just seeing that these people live out here, and they survive off the land. They all looked healthy. Many of their elders will live to be 100, simply eating off the land, eating the animals that they're able to catch and kill.
Bye.
I must say my time here, it's been amazing. This place is a beautiful country, a beautiful people. And if you get a chance, I highly recommend you come to Tanzania for your safari. I will be making some other videos, what to pack for safari, what camera equipment you should bring, and in a few days, I will be heading to Rwanda to experience a gorilla hike. So make sure you check back for that video. As always, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this. I know I typically talk about finance, but when I travel, I want to let you know what I'm doing. Check out some of my other videos. Make sure you check back in a few weeks for my gorilla hike. And as always, I'll see you next time.